When we think of moguls of the stock market, the first name that pops up into our mind is Warren Buffett. But today we're going to uncover the story of the man from Mexico who made more money in the stock market than Warren Buffett. Not once, but 3 years in a row. This is the story of Carlos Slim, the only non-American person to top the Forbes Richest list. Be sure to watch the video till the end to know how he succeeded in defeating the Oracle from Omaha, Warren Buffett, and became the richest person in the world. Carlos Slim was born in 1940 in Mexico City. Slim's father, Julian Slim Haddad, was a prosperous man of Lebanese descent who migrated to Mexico in 1902 to avoid being drafted in the army by the Ottoman Empire. Julian Slim opened a dry goods store in 1911, which grew at a healthy pace, allowing him to buy prime real estate during the Mexican Revolution for dirt cheap prices. Julian's dry stores continued to be a success, and his opportunistic investments had amassed him a fortune of over $25 million in today's dollar value by the 1930s. Watch later in the video how Carlos used his father's strategy of buying undervalued assets to build his business empire. Carlos took a keen interest in the family business, especially the financial side of things. He learned a great deal about reading financial statements and managing the finances of his family business from his father until Julian's unfortunate death when Carlos was just 13 years old. Carlos started his investment journey as a teen. He purchased the stocks of a Mexican bank. Carlos completed his graduation in civil engineering in Mexico City and then did a series of courses on economics in Chile. While studying, he used to teach algebra and linear algorithms. After that, Carlos entered the world of finance as a stockbroker. By the age of 25, Carlos, through his trading activities, had managed to earn over $400,000, which is worth more than $3.6 million in present-day value. He used this money to start what can be regarded as his first startup, Inversora Bursátil. In the next 2 years, he had multiplied his net worth tenfold and was worth $40 million in current dollar value. In the early 1980s, the economic conditions in Mexico were turbulent. This was caused by the peso crisis and the steeply declining oil prices. It gave Carlos the perfect opportunity to emulate his father's strategy of purchasing severely undervalued assets at cheap prices. The outflow of capital from the Mexican stock market due to the economic crisis made many publicly listed companies perfect for a takeover, and Carlos used his mathematical and financial knowledge to buy companies at depressed valuations, like Cigatam, which was the country's second largest cigarette manufacturer. Cigatam's purchase was vital to this plan, as it provided sufficient cash flow to finance the purchase of the wide range of companies which laid the foundation for his conglomerate, Grupo Carso. By the end of 1980, Grupo Carso controlled over 24 companies, which were spread out in various industries like retail, mining, construction, automation, energy, and hospitality. However, the most important acquisition which made him a majority of his wealth was that of Telmex, a government-owned telecommunications company which was privatized in 1990. Grupo Carso, along with American telecom giant AT&T and France Telecom, invested $1.76 billion for 20.4% stake and a controlling interest in the biggest player in the telecom industry in Mexico. Carlos Slim was able to secure managing control through Grupo Carso for Telmex by putting up half of the money for the bid. Keep watching to understand how Slim managed to create a monopoly in the telecommunications sector and eventually controlled over 40% of the Mexican stock market in terms of valuation. Mobile phones were becoming popular in Mexico in 1990s, and Telmex was operating in this sector through its subsidiary Telcel. Telmex had reinvested billions of its profits to install fiber connection and expand it throughout Latin America. By the year 2000, Carlos recognized the fact that wireless mobile and internet are the future of telecom. He leveraged his voting power along with AT&T, who were also shareholders of Telmex, and decided to spin off Telmex's wireless communications subsidiary, Telcel, to form a separate company called American Mobile. A spin-off is essentially when a company's subsidiary is made into a separate company which no longer is owned by the parent company. This allowed Slim to form a separate entity in the form of American Mobile. Carlos used the restructuring to ensure that American Mobile would be cash-strapped, with Telmex keeping a majority of the debts. Telmex had also transferred the fiber optics infrastructure that it had developed to enable wireless communications to American Mobile during the restructuring. The asset-rich nature of American Mobile, along with the increasing demand for wireless communication and broadband, allowed it to grow at a rapid pace in the early 2000s. After the dot-com bubble burst and the American stock market crashed, Slim started purchasing more and more shares of American Mobile from his American counterparts, AT&T, and other shareholders of the company, by using the money he was making from his other companies, which were relatively stable in Mexico. By 2010, Carlos controlled over 85% of American Mobile. In 2012, American Mobile purchased its former parent company, Telmex, and turned it into a private subsidiary. Slim's company had a market share of 70% in the mobile phone sector and 80% in the landline sector in Mexico, with similar dominance in almost every South American country. It was in 2010 that Carlos Slim overtook Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, who were in second and third place respectively, to become the richest person on the planet. In doing so, he became the first non-American citizen to achieve this feat. Please subscribe for more interesting business stories and strategies. Watch as we break down the 4 major strategies Carlos used to become the richest businessman in the world. You'll surely be left surprised by his third strategy. Carlos Slim believed in buying undervalued assets and companies that were running at a loss and turning them around by pumping in large sums of money to grow them and then sell them at a profit. He was an extremely opportunistic man, something that he learned from his father's real estate investments during the Mexican Revolution. We can see his willingness to reinvest the profits of the company into growing it further from the fact that his most successful company, Telmex, had invested about $33 billion in order to make it the market leader in the telecom sector. Another example of the turnaround king strategy was the sale of his 50% stake in cigarette manufacturing brand Cigatem to Philip Morris USA for a profit of more than $800 million. Slim is not bothered with the day-to-day operations of most of his investments. Even though he was the single largest shareholder of the New York Times, he was not involved in any of the editorial policy making. Carlos's second technique included diversification and expansion of his investments and holdings over a large number of industries and geographical area. His business empire is active across almost every country in Latin America, Australia, Austria, and the United States of America. A few of his major investments in the United States include OfficeMax, Office Depot, Barnes & Noble, and Circuit City. One of Slim's most famous investments have been his purchase of $60 million worth of Apple stocks when they were trading for about $17, which have already increased tenfold in valuation. He has his hands in every major industry in Mexico, including, but not limited, to retail, telecom, energy, construction, airlines, hospitality, and sports and entertainment. This allowed Slim to really diversify his risk. Slim was able to reduce the quantum of his losses when the dot-com bubble burst and the US economy was facing a major recession. This allowed Slim to overtake Buffett and Gates, who suffered major losses when the US economy was struggling, and become the richest person on the planet. The surprising third strategy that gave Slim an unfair advantage over his competitors like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett is the fact that Slim was able to form a monopoly in the Mexican stock market. It's almost impossible for American companies and investors to form such a monopoly given the stringent antitrust laws that are applicable in the country. It was because of this law that Bill Gates' Microsoft had decided to bail out Apple when it was on the verge of bankruptcy in 1997 through a $150 million investment, because of the fear of US authorities taking action against Microsoft's monopoly of the tech industry. He tries to create synergy between the different companies that he controls. He often plays bully ball and corners his competitors by ensuring that his companies only purchase the raw materials they required from other companies he owned, thereby causing a major hit to his competitors' revenue. For example, Slim purchased one of the largest manufacturers of copper wire, at the same time that he was purchasing Telmex. He then went on to stop Telmex from purchasing copper wires required for the expansion of telecom cable infrastructure from his competitors and diverted the purchases to his own copper cable company. In another example, Slim's investment in Apple allowed American Mobile to launch the iPhone in Latin America. The last thing that helped Carlos reach the apex of the business world was his connections to the government. The first major controversy involving the government helped Carlos acquire his crown jewel Telmex. In 1990s, the consortium led by Carlos's Grupo Campo was awarded the right to acquire the national telecom monopoly for $1.76 billion. But the controversy surrounded the payment of the said bid, which was done over the next several years and was financed by the revenues of Telmex itself. While the Mexican president Carlos Salinas de Gortari was influential in helping Carlos form a monopoly in the telecom industry, it was his successors Ernesto Zedillo and Vicente Fox who helped him skirt the antitrust laws and maintain his stifling monopoly. Carlos wielded so much influence on the Mexican government that at one point of time, the telecom minister of the country, Pedro Cerizola, was a former employee and district manager of Telemex. However, it was the government of President Enrique Pena Nieto, which came to power in 2012, that started to cause problems for Slim's monopoly. In 2014, Pena's government created a new law to break American Mobile's monopoly in the telecom market, making them follow special rules, like sharing their infrastructure for wireless communication with its smaller competitors and putting a cap on the fees that it would charge them for its use. This caused a major hit to Slim's wealth and saw him dropping from being the richest person in Forbes' list in 2013 to the second place in 2014, and eventually the fourth place in 2016. To know more about the businessmen who played Monopoly in real life, please check out the video in the link below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing business case studies and stories.